Hey guys, welcome to the 2 a.m. pipe on the patio. Today I'm smoking my Peterson 314 spigot with some wonderful Collins and Hogarth Dark Flake Scented from 2021. Got about probably a third of a jar left actually. Wonderful tobacco. I was reading about this tobacco before I did this video. I went to tobacco reviews and it says it has maple, licorice, and Tonkin bean for flavoring. When I get the Tonkin bean, which I absolutely love. I love Tonkin bean. I'm not getting the licorice or the maple. But I do have really bad allergies, so that could be why. Well, it's been a while since I've smoked this, and it is every bit as good as I remember. Retro hail on this is fantastic. This is a Lakeland. I believe this is a Lakeland. The reviews people were saying in there was like, you gotta really love Lakelands to like this one. I love this one. Absolutely wonderful. So yesterday, I pulled out a record that I probably haven't listened to in 20 years. It was a seminal record in my life. It came out in 1969 and I bought it in 1976. It was Mississippi Fred McDowell, and the album was titled I Do Not Play No Rock and Roll. And at that time in my life I was listening to Cream, and Mountain and the Allman Brothers, Robin Trower, Roy Buchanan, Glass Harp, Joe Walsh, and I was and T-Bone Walker. I had started I've been reading a lot of reviews, a lot of interviews of my favorite guitar players: Eric Clapton, Duane Allman, Joe Walsh, Phil Keaggy. And they were all mentioning guys like Mike Bloomfield, Freddie King, Muddy Waters, Albert King, Robert Johnson. And I had heard them mention a guy named Mississippi Fred McDowell. So I saw this album and I bought it. And I brought it home. I put it on. And it starts off with Mississippi Fred McDowell speaking and just playing slide guitar. And he starts off saying in his heavy accent, "My name is Mississippi Fred McDowell. I do not play no rock and roll. I play the straight and natural blues." And he's playing slide as he's saying all of this, and it is the raw, just raw blues. Now, I had heard slide guitar played by, Eric Clapton and Duane Allman. And Duane Allman's slide guitar, he had taken slide guitar and he had perfected it and just taken it up to here. Well, this slide guitar was nothing like Duane Allman's slide guitar. It was raw. It was emotional. It was just pure gut bucket rawness. And he played with a steak bone, and it was just, it hit me right in the gut, and it was like I was going to church when I was listening to this record. It was taking me to church, and I was like, glory, I have found what I'm looking for, and I was literally going to church when I was listening to this album, and it was touching me, and I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my freaking life, is play this music. And I had thought the Allman Brothers were where I was going. It was like, this music is changing my life. The Allman Brothers music was the greatest stuff I had ever heard, and I still think that. It's still the greatest music I've ever heard. But this music that Mississippi Fred McDowell was playing was the root. It was the foundation. It was the spring from which everything else has sprung, and it was moving me like nothing else has ever moved me. And I listened to that album all the time, and it was just like, this is. And he told stories throughout this album. He talked about the blues, and it used to be called a reel. It wasn't called the blues, it was reel. They called it a reel. And it was like going to school listening to this record. It was like I was going to school listening to this, and I was just so freaking excited listening to this dang record. And I listened to that thing so much, and it set me off on a path of learning about this music. And I could not find enough stuff to listen to read about, and to learn about this music that I loved. And I knew then that this was what I was going to do for the next 80 years if I lived that long. And I started buying everything I could find, records, books. I had a collection of books, blues books, that told about everybody that played blues. If I could find a book that talked about somebody, obscure person who played the blues, I bought it because I wanted to learn everything I could about it. And I studied who wrote what, when they wrote it, who sang the songs, who wrote the songs, when they wrote them, when they sang them. I wanted to know everything. And I was into it. And it all started with T-Bone Walker. My brother gave me a T-Bone Walker record when I was 14, and that started it all. And then I wanted to go back. I wanted to go back, and I wanted to go back, and I wanted to go back, and I wanted to. Every time I heard an interview with somebody and they talked about somebody before them who they learned from, I had to go back and find that. And I wanted to learn it all. I wanted to hear it all. I wanted to read it all. I wanted to learn it all. And but man, this Fred McDowell album, golly. And he was one of Bonnie Raitt's big influences, came to find out. But it was wonderful listening to that record because he talked on it, and it wasn't just him singing. He actually talked and told stories about the blues and about playing his slide and playing it with a steak bone and how he got that sound. And oh man, I got so excited about that album, and then pulling it out last night, it just all came flooding back. And then I pulled out the CD and stuck it in the car so I could listen to it in the car when I'm driving around. It's just I don't know if you guys have ever had something that moved you like that. And if you have, man, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, I pity you guys, man. It's been something that for the last, since 76, what is that, 50 years? Is that 50? I'm so old I can't even count anymore. But for 50 years, it's been just affecting me like that. When I hear something and I go back and I can remember where I was the first time I heard something, first time I heard that album, what year it was, how I felt. It's an amazing joy to have that in your life. And I kind of became a student of this music, and I learned everything I could about it, and I would go to see people play in town where I lived, and somebody would ask who wrote that song or something, and the guys in the band would look over at me and they go, Johnny, who wrote that song? They just knew that I knew, and because I learned everything I could about this stuff, and you know, and I'd tell them, you know, who wrote it and what year they wrote it, and they'd go, there you go. If anybody's gonna know. And it was just, I just had this love of this music, and I used to bother me when I played in this one band I was in, and they'd introduce a song, and they wouldn't introduce it as a song by the person who wrote it. They'd introduce it by somebody else who sang it 40 years after the person who wrote it and sang it first. And it used to drive me nuts. It was just a little thing, and it drove me nuts. And they say, oh, this is a song that Joanna Connor did on her album such and such, and it would have been a song that was done by Aretha Franklin or somebody who did it first, wrote it and recorded it first, and it used to drive me nuts. But it's just dumb little things that I was a stickler for, because I felt like it was important to give the person who wrote the song and recorded it first the credit. And one time we were playing in one of my bands, and we did a song called Mammer Jammer, and we had got it off an album by Tommy Castro. And the bass player who sang the song, he introduced it, and we were opening for gosh, I can't remember who we opened for that night. It's a big blues singer, James Harman, that's his name. And James Harman came up to us and he said, you know, Don and Dewey wrote that song, and you should be giving Don and Dewey the credit for that song. He said, Tommy Castro did an amazing version, but you should give Don and Dewey credit for writing that song. And Emo, the bass player, and we were both like, you're absolutely right, we should be giving Don and Dewey the credit. And it just killed me that I didn't know that Don and Dewey had written that song. I thought it was a Tommy Castro song, and Emo had brought it to the band. He said, hey, let's do this Tommy Castro song, and it was a live version that Tommy Castro did, and I just assumed it was a Tommy Castro song. I never looked into it. I just thought that Emo knew what he was talking about. And it killed me. It killed me that James Harman, who I had adored and who was so wonderful to us, he just treated us so well. When we opened for him, but he was just a wonderful man and an amazing harmonica player. And he was. Watch some videos of James Harman, and great harmonica player, great singer, great showman, and my wife came up and asked him. I was sitting there talking to him after the show, and she came up and she said, would you mind if I got a picture of you two together? And he looked at her and he says, I hope you got a wide angle lens on that camera. We were both pretty big guys. And oh man, that just killed me. But that was to be that guy who always wanted to make sure everybody said who was, to say correctly who sang a song and everything, and then to have somebody do that to me, it just crushed me. And to have somebody who you respected so much do it. But we made sure after that we always knew. We double checked everything after that. Wow, it was a fun song to play though. Mammer Jammer. Tommy Castro's version. Boy, it was fun to get that album out. I haven't listened to that album in probably 20 years, and when I was going through getting all the albums out of my shelves in the after the flood in the basement, I saw that album and I was like, man, I have got to get this out and listen to it. And so I did yesterday, and boy, it just brought back some amazing memories for me. And I just wanted to tell you guys about that. Boy, that was a monumental album in my life. Mississippi Fred McDowell, I do not play no rock and roll. Amazing. So anyway, I will catch you guys later. Have a good one. I hope you find something in your life that just moves you to the core and it inspires you for 50 years. And we'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.